Hello and welcome to another Near Reading cast. As always, my name is Jono, and this time I'm flying solo as we watch the UK Games Expo Regional. On the left-hand side of this game, we're going to have Dyer playing NEH. On the right-hand side, we're going to have Even Sørgjerd playing Hayley. Chris, obviously, a very intimidating player from Exeter in Southwest. And Evan, given the surname, I think he has Norwegian origin. He lives in Edinburgh, though. He's part of the Scottish meta. Evan came through the winners bracket into this game, so he has the advantage in this final. If he wins, then he will be the Expo Regional champion. Chris, on the other hand, came through the losers bracket, so he'll need to win 2 games for the title. So Chris's NEH deck is an asset spam list. This is from the South Island meta, so this is pre-Most Wanted list, of course, as well. The most recent Most Wanted list update, that is. So I expect his plan will be to try and get some economic assets in play as quickly as possible. Hayley is on Evan's on a kind of pitchfork. Hayley, it's a fairly big rig, can be fairly slow to set up. So I think Chris's advantage here is going to be as if he can race out as quickly as possible. Evan, on the other hand, will probably have a Clot lock threat. There'll be almost certainly at least one Clot in this deck. And because of Hayley, there'll be the threat of sacrificial construct, that kind of thing as well. So Chris will have to play around that quite carefully. Of course, being before the most recent Most Wanted list update, there will be 3 Astros in this list, so fast advance is definitely a threat. So Chris's first turn was just to install a single remote and take some money. It's fairly slow. Evan's first turn was to... he did check R&D, didn't see anything of interest, installed the Proco and started to use it. And here, alright, so we see on Chris's second turn he did get turtlebacks down. So he's going to res it and start installing some remotes. Of course, every install now will make him money, so his economy should start to balloon. It'd be interesting to see if Evan checks these remotes. You would like to trash turtlebacks before he gets out of hand. Doesn't have the money though. He's going to professional contacts to make some more money and draw. I'm not sure. He's not tempted to check remotes. There's always the threat, of course, that Chris could sneak out an Astro. It's possible he's not going to be quite so reckless at this stage. So there's 3 Procos for the turn from Evan, and he's going to install SMC, okay. And Hayley will install Cash. So that's quite nice. It means that he can threaten Clot at the very least. And being able to threaten Clot is going to be quite important for the long-term plan. He wants to delay any kind of rushed fast advance. Chris, on the other hand, considering he has the turtlebacks, is happy to just continue installing for the NEH draw once a turn and the turtlebacks once a click. In fact, he installs 3 remotes this turn. So, making a decent amount of money and giving everyone a genuine problem, because now there are 5 totally unknown remotes, any of which could cause him huge problems. He's not feeling rushed though. He's going to Proco twice. Seems to be content just to kind of set up. It's going to poke at HQ. So he thinks Chris probably hasn't put out an agenda, but he might keep one in hand. Oh, he has. Okay, so he's going to see an NPD. He's having a bit of a think, but I don't think there's any reason not to steal it at this stage. I guess being in HQ, it's going to be hard to get another access of. He might have had better plans for that money, but... so he's going to install daily costs and political operative. That is interesting. So the Polyp is obviously a splash in this list. The main uses it's going to have in this matchup, the main use will be Sansan City Grid. So it will be single use, which means that the first time Chris wants to use it, of course, he can res the Sansan and score an agenda. In fact, so he did in fact sneak out a Bill. He can res the Sansan and score an agenda, but if it's already res, so the second time he might try to use it, Polyp, assuming Evan has 5 credits, can trash it. So Sansan kind of becomes like a 6 credit Bartic Labour. You can struggle to use it more than once. Evan might consider using it on something like a Sensi or maybe not Turtlebacks, but something like a Sensi that's going to give Chris, if Evan's not prepared for it, Chris a deep draw to push an advantage. he might consider using it for that. Or, of course, if nothing pans out, he'll probably be able to sell it to ESOPs. There's almost only going to be an ESOP in this deck. That's going to be a lot of where his money comes from, is using Hayley to install things like cash and very cheap resources and selling them. So he's going to install RDI and check R&D. He does pull a bill. He sees a Sansan as well. He's got no choice but to leave it there. He's only got 1 credit. I expect by now, to be honest, there's already a Sansan on the board, so there's not a lot of point in trashing it from R&D. If he can find, if he may have a plan to check all these remotes and start to trash things, but if I'm honest, I think it's got a little bit away from him. His plan at this stage, his best plan at this stage, maybe to try and just prevent the fast advance. He does only have 1 credit though, so Chris, there was no Clot threat in that turn, unless I'm mistaken. No, I don't think so. He only had the SMC and 1 credit, so he couldn't even do any with Hayley nonsense. So if there wasn't a fast advance option there, then Chris may have missed it. I'm assuming not though. I mean, Chris obviously a really great player. He's only had the money at the stage anyway to res the Sansan maybe and score something off of it. But Proco is just going to bring money back. Okay, so a clone chip is available now as well. So that means that if Evan happens to say draw a Clot into his hand, then using clone chip and SMC and Hayley, of course, he can instant speed install. Chris, being quick though, had snuck out an Astro last turn, so he seems to have clocked that Evan is not interested in checking these remotes. So it's already 4-4. We've had a couple of early accesses, 1 from HQ, 1 from R&D, and 2 snuck out agendas. That Astro count is going to be huge, of course. If Chris has any draw, maybe he hasn't res them, so I'm assuming he doesn't have a Sensi or a DBS. But if he does have any and starts to install them, then he'll be able to draw 3 2s and start, hopefully score them out very quickly. Evan's going to check R&D though. He's going to hit a toll booth, so he's only got 8 credits. He may be able to get through it though. Let's see what he does. I mean, there's all kinds of ways he could pull programs out. He might have he could SMC for let's think, SMC for Sai would be possible. He could do that. It wouldn't be too expensive. Or clone chip. I can't quite see I don't know what's in his bin. I haven't seen any Koga records go past. He's going to SMC for, of course. I mean, he doesn't even, if he's got a breaker in his hand, he could SMC for any old program, cash or something, and it's all from his hand. So in fact, that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to SMC for a cash, and then trigger Hayley. It's worth mentioning, of course, that he can't take the money from the cash until Hayley is already triggered. So he very quickly pays for the cash and puts the credits on it while he installs a David from his hand. Okay, so then he's going to take the 3 from cash, which will go straight into the toll booth. Pricing is going to pay 1. David Cantwell getting 2 axes with RDI. He's going to pull an Astro, so that is a good check. And CVS, which you trash because Clot is obviously part of your game plan. So that was huge. If you hadn't checked, of course, then Chris would have top decked that Astro and scored it straight out. Or at least, well, I don't know. There may be a CVS on the board, so you may have got around a Clot. There's no sacrificial construct at the moment. If Evan has one, that might be something he'd consider getting down very quickly. Because if he's got a sacrificial construct on the board, it's going to cause Chris huge problems to try and score out while there's a Clot threat. Because, of course, the sacrificial construct can protect the Clot, which means 2 purges are required and 2 CVSs, and that's often just impractical. So he's going to finish his turn by discarding some cards. So Chris, he does have this pad, and he does have 2 turtle backs, so the economy will come back. He obviously paid 8 to res that toll booth, which set back a little bit, but the money will come back if Evan doesn't go after these remotes. So I don't think he's going to be too worried about that. Just got a question from Tio about timings for installing stuff. So to clarify, Evan had a window during the approach of the ice before the toll booth fired to do all of his installs and get the cash and the David and things like that. And he could do all of that before he paid the toll, which of course he did. If he'd done it after paying the toll, he might not have been able to afford it all. So, yeah, Chris is going to stall. He's going to make some money off of that. He does have 2 clicks remaining. He's going to advance. Okay, so he's going to advance. He's got 1 click remaining. He's going to give Evan the opportunity to think. He did draw. That was his NEH draw that he missed. So he does still have 1 click remaining. He's going to give Evan the opportunity to Clot. He does have 2 credits. So if the Clot is in his deck, he cannot currently get it because he'd have to clinch it for the SMC. And with the SMC, he wouldn't be able to afford to get out of the deck. If it's in his hand, on the other hand, then, which it almost certainly is because he's thinking about it, then he could, he could of course get out of the deck with Artist Colony. Okay, so he's going to use Artist Colony, he's going to sell the NAPD and pay 2 credits. So this will definitely be Clot that he's going to get then. The alternative would have been to clinch the SMC in or something if he had the Clot in hand, I suppose. It would have caused memory problems, he would have had to trash the caches, presumably. Okay, so the Clot's on the table, so that means that this card, assuming it's an agenda, can't be scored this turn. So Chris is going to have 1 click remaining. If he has a CVS, he doesn't, or at least he doesn't want to use it. So he's going to install and get some more money. He doesn't ice the thing though, so he's obviously not too worried about Evan running this. So I wonder if it's another NEPD. Could be 50 minutes maybe as well. Actually, 50 minutes is not ideal because Evan does have an Artist Colony. So, fighting the 50 minutes out there, he's almost certainly going to sell it before the end of his turn if he does run that remote. Which he should. If he assumed it was an agenda, which he obviously did because he played the Clot, and it makes no sense to not follow up and run the remote. So I expect that'll be at least 1 click. It also is going to Proco though, so I think what he might be thinking here is that if it's an NEPD, he needs to access for 4 credits. So, I'd expect him to Proco 1 more time probably. Or install the cache or something, of course. Very methodical player is Evan. He's very slow to consider his options, so he does Proco. But he doesn't want to be rushed into anything. So he does Proco up to 4 credits, and he's going to check the remote, and he's going to access. So it is a 50 minutes. Okay, so he's going to steal it, at least for now. He'll only be on 5 points. I'd expect him to sell this before the end of the turn. 50 minutes, of course, has the clickability for the core, but they can remove it from the score area and put it back in their own. That's not useful for the runner, but since he has the Artist Colony, he might as well sell it before it goes away and get something he needs. I'm not sure what that would be in this case. Maybe a Sacrificial Construct. That would be quite interesting. So he's going to install, on his last kick, a Assemble thing and a Technical Writer. And he does ask Chris to pause because he does want to use the Artist Colony to sell 50 minutes, of course, which makes perfect sense. And he's going to get an ESOP. So yeah, okay, that's reasonable. So his economy is faltering a little bit. He's got a couple of caches hanging around. And with the ESOP, he's going to be able to start selling them. And he's going to get money back very soon. So with the Clot on the table, in Chris's position here, I'm not sure. I wonder if he considers a hard purge. He's not. He's got a pad. He's not falling behind too badly. There's maybe a threat that Evan could run R&D again. So he decides not to. He's going to install. Of course, every install now gets him 2 credits because he has 2 tailbacks. So he's going to make some fast money. He's going to ask R&D. Okay, so he's obviously a little concerned about the R&D threat. There was 2 RDR on the table, and Evan can get in for just 3 credits in the David counter, so he can get in for a couple of accesses. NEH, of course, loses from R&D, because generally speaking, when you're in this position, when you draw the agendas, you can start scoring them. So he decided to shore up R&D. I might expect him to purge in the near future to kill that Clot so that he can start to think about fast advance and ask Evan questions about making sure he can threaten Clot at all times. So not too surprisingly, Aesop sells the one of the 2 caches. I wonder if Evan considers here. Okay, he's going to start checking some remotes. He's worried about snuck out agendas maybe. So he's going to see a Mumba Temple, which Chris is going to res before he accesses to res DBS. Okay, all right. So he's given away, if you like, what one of the other remotes is. He's saved Evan a click if he was going to check it, but he's resed it for a credit discount. That's not too unreasonable. And obviously both cards are good. He's having a long think about whether he lets him keep this Mumba Temple. I mean, it's a card you would like to kill, but they all are, to be honest. You have to pick your battles. You can't afford to trash every remote. Well, unless you're Wizard. So I'm doing some quick maths. I'm wondering. So he's on 6 credits. So if he does trash it, he'll have 3 left. I'm not sure what he's got in mind for the rest of the turn. He's only got 1 click left. So he does trash it. Oh no, I'm sorry. That was the first click. Because he's going to access another one right now. And now he's got a question about if he wants to trash the second one, and I think he doesn't, because he's now. It's a little different, but he's now only got 3 credits. It would bankrupt him. This one's not rezzed, unlike the last one. I mean, rezzing is pretty trivial, but... So he does leave this one. So money becoming a little bit of an issue. He does have 2 clicks remaining, so he's going to play a resource. So he's going to play Tech Writer. Okay, so Tech Writer obviously can give him long-term money as he starts installing programs. So he's going to scavenge a cache. Okay, so I mean he's going to trash the existing cache and reinstall it from the bin. He's going to gain 3 credits straight away, and it is a straight 3 because obviously it's free to install, and both Tech Writers far as well. So Chris can install a remote for drawing money. He's still happy to leave that Clot on the board. Let's continue to install. I'm not sure. So he's obviously establishing a fairly strong board state. He's just throwing out as many assets as he can. He's also, due to the constraints of fitting on camera on the map, he's obviously started to cascade them. This was a feature of this game. Both these guys have a lot of cards to install, so you may notice this video has a slightly wider angle than the ones we normally put up, which tend to be a lot closer to the mats because they both overflowed their mats at some point. Okay, so he's going to check the outside remote and see a Sansan. I mean, I guess it'd be nice to trash. Team's actually a bit more tempting, I think, in this position because he already has fast advance options available. He's got the Astro. He leaves both, in fact, but the team allows the board state to just get kind of oppressive. And he's going to proco a couple of times. Pinch turn, okay. So Chris gets his pad and DBS draw. Still more installing. Okay, shoring up R&D, and another remote install. So not too much being given away. He's just worried about R&D. I wonder if he'd drawn an agenda, if he would have been tempted to try and score it, or at least answer this Clot. It makes me think there's probably a CVS on the board. So as Evan checks some remotes and sees sounds how much he leaves, and then a Sensi, which is a lot more tempting. I think it's kind of an automatic trash at this point. I'm assuming there's a CVS on the board somewhere, which is why Chris isn't considering purging. I think that he's hoping to draw an agenda that he can score, and here we go. So there's a Sacrificial Construct barely in shot at the top of the screen there, along some daily casts. But that Sacrificial Construct is obviously very important because it means that one CVS is not sufficient to trash the Clot. So I wonder if we'll see a purge this turn. No, we don't. Okay, so Chris is going to power through. I can't believe he's got 2 CVS on the board. Maybe he does. Maybe he honestly does. But that Clot is going to be a problem to get rid of. I've had some experience myself playing fast advanced NEH. Interesting, okay. And playing around Satcon Clot is a huge problem. So I was about to say. So having installed on his first click, Chris is now going to Biotics. That suggests he has... He might have the 2 CVSs, so he's going to raise the Bumba Temple. And raise a Sansan. But that's not... Okay, so he installed this outside remote. I'm wondering what he's doing here. So he's going to score from his hand. But he's going to try and... He's using a Sansan and a Biotic. Okay, interesting. So he's going to install... okay, so there's a bit of an error here. He didn't realise. So he reses and purges using CVS. Yeah, okay, so he reses and purges using CVS, but he did not spot the Sacrificial Construct go down, which is a real shame. So that means he's got no response to the Clot. He's going to have a quick look to see if he has another one. looks bad. So, okay, he's going to have to leave that. He obviously accidentally revealed it as well, breaking news on the Sansan. That obviously also gives away that he has grand plans for that breaking news. It has an advancement counter on it, though. So, it must have not had time to put the advancement on it. If he had time to advance it, you can score it straight away, of course, because it's on the Sansan, being a 2-1. So that, I'm not sure if he actually spent the credit for that. That could be an error. The window, of course, is that as soon as the card is installed on the... oh, no, right. I remember. Yeah. So he installed it and advanced it, being ready to score, res the CVS and used it, but obviously was not sufficient. Okay, so that's why it's advanced. So that's fine. That's all above board. So Evan now is obviously at some point during this turn going to run that... run the breaking news. The fact that he tried to do it with one click to spare, and the fact that he did it by spending a Bartik and a Sansan when he'd already spent a click on his turn, and didn't say wait for the following turn, suggests to me that he has something in mind for that spare click he would have had with the tags. And this is noted before exchange of information, so the obvious thing to me is an all-seeing eye, which would be pretty crippling for Evan actually here. I mean, other threads include something like closed accounts, but that's only really recently resurged, and it's the all-seeing eye that would be huge here. And decks of this time, this kind of list would almost certainly include at least one. So we're just going to move all these things back onto the mat. Yeah, so he runs and steals the breaking news on click 1. Okay, he also sold the Artist Colony. I'm not sure if he might have had some use for that still to come. The other thing, of course, is if he has another one in hand, he can install it, and it's basically like clicking for 3 credits. So, yeah, he sold the breaking news. He also accessed the Sansan, but he's not tempted. Even he has a fair amount of money now. He's not tempted to trash it because he knows there's more. And I think trashing these things is not how he's going to stop the fast advance. Managing Clot is how he's going to stop the fast advance. So he's going to Proco. Hunting grounds. Okay, that's going to do some work in his R&D because it means he can ignore the toll booth on a counter trigger, which will save him 3 credits in every R&D run. So as it is now, it can just cost him a David counter to get in. Obviously, depending on what these other seller ice is. So there's no res on the outside. The second ice is being resed. It's Enigma. Okay, so that's going to force Evan to get a real breaker, which of course David does not. I wonder what the solution is here. You might consider a side considering there are 2 co-gets in this server now. Depends where he's got. It might have a Zoo or Blade maybe. He's going to play chip for a cash. Okay, all right. Bit of a misplay here then. He's playing chip for a cash, but he's already installed this turn. He installed the hunting grounds. It looks like he suddenly realised that. So he's going to bounce. So he allows the Enigma to end the run. Yeah, a bit of a misplay there. It's a shame. But no doubt he'll be back. He obviously has the Sai or whatever it was going to be in hand. So I expect him to install it next turn and run. Errors from both sides. To be honest, there's no judgment on either of these 2 players. This was at the end of an incredibly long day. There were 7 rounds of Swiss, and it was a long top 8 cards all in one day. Okay, so we're going to get a purge from Chris here. He has purged the Clot. There's no clean chip on the board. In fact, there's no fast advance. There's no Clot threat of any kind on the board at the moment. Now the Artist Colony is gone as well, so you can't even say Artist Colony for a clone chip and install it. Install the Clot. So if Evan doesn't correct that, then Chris will be totally free to fast advance next turn. He does have a sense. The Sensi was trash, but he might have Sensi or something like that on the board to help him get the agenda. He only has DBS. Okay, so he's going to trash the same old thing. It's not too surprising, actually. I've seen almost no events, so I'm assuming there aren't a lot of them. It looks like it's on RDI, so there's probably not even makers. There might be a levy, of course, but it may just be that it's in there because it's a zero-cost resource, so Hayley can probably install it for no click, and you can sell it to ESOP. So you pro code and click 1. I'm not sure what he's drawing for. He he was going to Hayley install something from hand and check R&D. I wonder if he goes through with that this turn. He might be considered check remotes as well. Okay, so he's going to do Cyber Cipher. The other thing, placing naming R&D, of course, is going to trigger all of his effects, including Technical Writer. He didn't trigger Hayley, but he is going to also install second RDI. So every run on R&D now is a Maker's Eye run. So he's going to run, there's no res on the outside, so he's going to approach and break the Enigma with the Cyber Cipher, which is pretty trivial. And he's going to use Hunting Grounds and Cyber Cipher to get to the toll booth. Sorry, it was Cyber Cipher, in fact, not David. He's going to pull the Breaking News. Interestingly, puts him 6 points. Team sponsorship and one more. No, okay, just a pad. So he only needs one agenda to win. Chris in a bit of a tight spot now. He can't really keep him out of R&D. He can have more ice to try and tax him, but he does use the Mumba to res a couple of team sponsorships. So if he has an agenda, which he does not appear to in hand, okay, so we're going to install for draw. There's still no Clot threat. So if he has a way of fast advancing our agenda, I think he just hasn't drawn one. Oh, he might have one. Is that breaking news? Oh, sorry. Okay, so he's called up by the judge on... he forgot his DBS. He just didn't manage to draw. But I think everything's above board. So... yeah, because he's taken an NEH draw as well. So I had to correct it. But I think that's fine. Okay, so he's going to install on the Sansan. He's only got one click remaining. He's having to think. Okay, so he's going to use the Astro Count. It's called Breaking News, okay, which is going to stick in with 2 tags. I wonder if we're now going to see that All-Seeing Eye threatened before. Yeah, okay. That's kind of punishing, and the growing crowd around the game reacts to it as well. That's a lot of very nice cards to get rid of. So the other thing Evan could have done there, he was in his... Could he have pulled up the Sansan? No, not before the Breaking News install, because he had scored with the Astro Counter. That's true. There was no response. Okay, so all of Evan's resources now gone. He's only just one access to win. He can get into R&D, of course. Hunting Grounds is gone, so he's going to struggle. Instead, he installs an Artist Colony and another Professional Contacts. Okay, so he's... I don't know, that's quite slow. It's quite a slow play. He suggested this to him, this game is going to last more than the next 3 or 4 turns, playing a Proco, which maybe it won't. He's going to check the pad. I'll leave it there. I think he's fine. He can't really control Chris's economy at this stage. What's important is that he gets an access before Chris next draws an agenda, or that he can threaten Clot to prevent the fast score. The Astro Count's now gone. Chris has to find a way to score a 3-2 as well. So Evan's other solution here would be to trash the Sansan and check all remotes that go down, trashing any Sansans he sees, and just stay afloat enough to keep money up. Because, although actually, having said that, we have seen Biotics. So Biotic would be an out for Chris in that case. So maybe the Clot threat is the most important thing. So we've got a click for 1 on R&D. So members are going to res an assassin. Yes, that's a bit of a problem for Evan at the moment. He can use David, but it does have 2 subs, so it's going to use up both of his 2 remaining David counters. So he's going to do that. He does the maths, and so he can still get in. So he's going to pay his way through the Enigma and the Cyber Cipher with Tollbooth with Cyber Cipher. He just sees 2 pieces of ice in the Mumba Temple. Okay, so it's worth a punt though. You know, obviously 1 access would have won in the game. Let's have a quick think about agendas now, actually. So Evan's stolen 2 Breaking News and an Astro and a Beal. There's a Breaking News on the other side of the table and an Astro and a Beal. So there's going to be 1 Astro left in the deck. Of course, we lost a 15 minutes and an NAPD to the Artist Colony. Okay, so that's 11. NAPD is 15. 50 minutes is 16 points. Okay, so there's 4 points remaining. So you'd assume that there's 1 more Astro and 1 more Beal? Why have I totally miscounted? I think there's a shortage of points left in the deck. Okay, so I had a glimpse of Chris's hand earlier. I think he drew a little engine. So he's installed it on your remote. Obviously, it's useless on R&D because Cybercipher will just make money on it. So he's put it in your remote. It did get him a draw, and also he might consider putting something behind it, maybe a Sansan. Evan's going to check this outside remote, which is barely in shot. It's another Mumba, which he leaves there. So Evan procos and celebrates. He celebrates when he draws a card. I wonder what it is. In fact, we're going to find out very shortly. It's an Astrolabe, which he's been waiting the entire game for and has definitely passed its maximum use at this point, as Chris is on, 15 remotes. He installs it anyway. I'm not sure why that is. Memory is probably not going to be a problem. I mean, it's possible if he wants to float an SMC as well. If nothing else, he can sell it to Aesop if he gets another Aesop. Okay, so Mumba reses another Mumba, and then that reses some pads. So there's a lot of money going to start trickling in now. Chris gets DBS draw as well. So with no Clot threat online, and there is not, he's just an agenda draw away from winning. Well, okay, that's not strictly true because he has the Sansan, so it depends what he draws. He's going to ice the Sansan instead with the only remaining card in his hand. Okay, so I wonder if he's thinking about waiting for the agenda to come through so we can put it in. Evan just procoing, just building back up. Okay, Tech Rotor and Aesops. So Tech Rotor, again, a somewhat long-term piece of economy, but Aesops will do some good work straight away, at least next turn. But there is an artist colony as well. I must have missed the artist colony before. Okay, so there has been a Clot threat this time. The breaking news could turn into a Clot. That's actually not a bad idea. All 4 1-point agendas are out of the game, so Evan being on 6 points is not actually that useful. So he can happily give up a breaking news. The next agenda he accesses will almost certainly be a 2-point agenda, whatever it happens to be. So we just get more ice on R&D. So Chris knows where he loses here. He does not, I don't think, currently have a CVS. I mean, I think those 2 face-down cards that have been there the whole time were there the turn. He would have really liked a second CVS for that breaking news, the earlier breaking news. So I assume they're not, which means that he currently doesn't have a way to kill a Clot if one does come out when he tries to score. So I think he's just defending R&D and hoping that he draws the CVS before the agenda. Anyway, he's not installing remotes. So Evan not being pressured into checking remotes and keep him honest. So Evan totally happy to just very slowly build up as long as he can keep the Clot threat online at all times. So Chris is going to take some pad money and he's going to get his DBS draw. Yeah, that's a good point. Chris is obviously drawing 1 of 2 cards at a time, so he can filter his draw to make sure he tries to get the CVS before the agenda. He thinks about manually drawing, so he's going to install in the remote. It's funny actually, since Evan installed the Astrolabe, Chris hasn't installed the remote since. So installing this remote, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe he would have been tempted to draw, even though Evan would also get the draw. So he decides to just install in that remote and take money. So Evan's got to be tempted by what that is. And to be honest, he has to check. So he's going to check the remote. So I think it was a little engine. I'd be interested to see. So Chris doesn't res it. Okay, he's just going to use a Jackson. So he just did it to avoid the Astrolabe draw, I suppose. And he's going to put back 2 CVSs. I wonder if he could have considered putting back a Biotic as well in case his Sansan gets blown up. It looks like Evans is not going to bother trying to trash it though. So he just puts back CVSs because he knows that's what he needs. The 2 fan sites do get triggered as well. He installs 2 fan sites, which are not going to do any work now because the next agenda that gets scored will win the game. But he can sell to ESOP, so it's going to make 6 credits over 2 turns, which is pretty fun. It's fine for 1 click. So we've got a DBS draw. I wonder if he's tempted. And a manual draw. So we're going to ice. So he's getting a second piece of ice in the Sansan and install in it. Wow, this is interesting. Okay, so this is almost certainly an agenda. Or it's bait, of course. It could be a bluff. There won't be traps or anything like that. But he could be trying to tax him into a run, or at least find out if he's got the breakers to get in. Yeah, very interesting. So Aesop's going to buy a fan site. I mean, Evan has 2 clone chips and 15 credits, so he's and an artist colony with a breaking news if he's desperate. There's not a lot of cards left in his deck, but he can probably get any breaker he wants fairly easily, whether it's in his hand or not. In fact, he can probably get 2 breakers, so I'm not sure what this ice is that Evan's going to have trouble with. But anyway, the game's coming down to a head now. It's very tense. Evan needs to check it, and Chris will almost certainly win if he doesn't get in. So he's just going to run it on click 1. Maybe to find out what's in there, he might need to... Okay, Archangel. I mean, I'm not sure what you're worried about picking up here. The real question is, I'm not sure what high impact thing Chris can force him to pick up. The most expensive card on the board is Professional Contacts. Maybe something like an RDI would be quite good as well. But to be honest, if the game is in this remote, then Archangel won't do anything. He has 2 clone chips, so even if he was forced to pick up a clone chip, that won't stop him from getting out when he needs to get out. So I think he just lets it happen. I think Evan is just going to let it happen here. Yeah. And this is the question he's now asking himself. And he says to Chris, what would you make me pick up? So I'm not sure here. I think so Evan just lets it fire, and he's happy to not bother contesting the trace. So Professional Contacts gets picked up. That's fine. So we've got, so it's a wraparound, which surely Evan's going to be able to break 15 credits and 2 clone chips. Needs 1 anyway. I mean, might have another David. Corroda, possibly Lady and Shaper. So I think he might have something useful in hand. You can clone chip it as an SMC and install something good from hand over the David, maybe. It's got to be a load of solutions. Okay, so he's going to use the clone chip. For a Lady, that'll do it. So it will cost him 4 to install and just 1 Lady counter. I'll access. As an NPD, which he can afford. Okay. Wow, okay. So not very secure remote. I mean, maybe Chris was just hoping it would look more intimidating than it was. Yeah, I wonder if there... Let's quickly think about the agendas in this deck. I wonder if Chris was in a position where he only had NPDs left to score out. No, he had at least 1 more Astro. He may have just drawn the agendas in the wrong order. He could have possibly tried to keep it in hand, but maybe that would have been... he would have considered that dangerous. So anyway, yeah. That was the final, and Evan, having come out of the winner's bracket, did not need a second game because Chris had already had a loss earlier in the day. So Evan Sørgjerd was the UK Games Expo Regional Champion of 2016, and it's interesting. He's an interesting guy because he's not a Netrunner player. That's not his first choice game. He plays a lot of LCGs. He's a Thrones player at heart, and he was kind of reluctant to make the cut because he was going to play Thrones the next day at the Expo. I actually got the chance to. I ran into him the next day, and I believe he also made the Thrones cut as well. So he's obviously an all-round, he's an incredibly good player and an incredibly nice guy. So he, out of the 121 players, I think it was, on the day at the UK Games Expo, walked away with the regional crown and the national bye, which he would surely attend, being the kind of guy who plays all the LCGs. And I should give a shout out then to the event itself. It was really good. I mean, I'm a big fan of the UK Games Expo anyway. I've gone for a few years now in a row. And the guys who ran this tournament, that includes the likes of Coop, CJ, Steve, and John, all did a really great job running that regional. It was really well run. They looked after us as well when we were trying to set up to record games and stream the final, as we did. And it was all around a great event. It was a shame that it had to be all crammed into one day, but honestly, that's fine. Most people were there for the weekend anyway, for the whole of the expo, so there were no problems with for most people with travel, because many were staying in hotels and stuff anyway. And it was a great event. It was at the time and still the largest regional there's ever been for Netrunner in the world, and it speaks to the strength of the UK meta that we can throw such large events. So that brings to an end our Expo regional coverage. Next up on the channel, we're going to jump forward quite some way, and we're going to jump straight into the UK National, which took place not that long ago, although as of the time of this, a long way in the future. But anyway, took place at the ICC in Birmingham, and was a huge 2-day event. It was a whole weekend of FFG national events, but the Netrunner itself was a 2-day event. 7 rounds of Swiss and top 16 on the next day. And it was really great fun, so I'm looking forward to bringing those videos onto the channel. The Cup, being a top 16, had some of the very best players from all across the country. And I can tell you that in the first game from the Cup, we had... Checks notes, because I can't remember. That's right, of course. It was... Netrunner pals and hardcore training buddies Mark Mottram and Dave Hoyland, who got paired together. They finished 8th and 9th respectively after the 7-round Swiss, and they played each other in the first elimination round. Mark was on Wizard and Dave was on IG. In fact, the two of them were playing almost identical lists, so they had an incredibly thorough inside-out knowledge of each other's decks. So that's the first video we're going to see from the UK National, so look forward to that very, very soon, next week. And I'm actually looking forward to that. That should be a great one. So there's nothing else from me. Obviously, in Jerry's absence, he's on holiday. I hope you've enjoyed this very cozy viewing just with me. I've enjoyed it. But I'd like to remind you and all of our viewers that they can find all the videos on the website nearreddinggrid.co.uk. They can find us on Facebook and on Twitter. And they find us on Patreon if they'd like to support the channel. All contributions go towards improving the channel and are hugely appreciated. Check out the Dead Channel podcast as well for some top Netrunner content. Thank you very much for viewing, and we'll see you next time.